It's great to see you tonight. It's really enjoyable to be with you. I really enjoy my winters down in Florida and with the Livingston family of God. And so we've been given the topic of adultery. Last night we dealt with the warnings in Scripture about it. Tonight I want to look at a more positive angle, and Scripture gives us that too, of how do I make the most of my marriage to see that Satan's not able to get in there and undermine me and my mate. And so let's have a prayer, and then we'll get into our topic. Dear Lord, we're grateful for the time tonight to spend time in your word and to grow spiritually, to strengthen ourselves. And we're thankful that we're able to meet with other Christians, that we're not alone in this, that we have a vast support network. And we pray as we study that we would have good hearts. In Jesus' name, amen. Before I get there, we're going to go to Proverbs 5, but Proverbs 5 speaks of, that's that proverb that talks about be exhilarated with the love of the wife of your youth. Almost be enraptured, almost be intoxicated, carried away by her love. It talks about to rejoice in that and to rejoice in her, but it also speaks of that wife of your youth as a fountain, as an ever-flowing source of refreshing, cool water. My question is, why that comparison? Why does the Holy Spirit says, hey, the wife of youth is like this fountain. Let your fountain be blessed and rejoice in that. And I want you to be thinking about that, because there's a lot of people in our culture that might argue that monogamy is boring. How could you ever be married to just one woman in life, or etc.? A number of people have that attitude, that's boring. And I don't believe that. I think that's the wrong perspective. And I think Proverbs maybe brings out some information along those lines. The devil is able to get in there. Adam and Eve, you see that. Adam and Eve at the end of chapter 2, husband and wife, complete ease among themselves, complete ease, no barriers. Satan gets in there, sin happens, and immediately they're extremely self-conscious, they are awkward, they are hiding from God, they're hiding from each other, he's throwing her under the bus, and as far as I can tell, that goes down quickly. That relationship deteriorates in a matter of hours. And that's the havoc that Satan's able to play on a couple. And so we're told in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 27, give no room, give no opportunity, give no foothold for the devil. We're told in 2 Corinthians chapter 2, we're not ignorant of his devices. We know how he works. We're told in Romans chapter 13, verse 14, make no provision for the flesh in regard to its lust. That is, don't set yourself up to fail. Don't be your own worst enemy. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. Don't put yourself at a disadvantage. Do everything you can. Do everything you can to keep yourself right with God. And so in Proverbs 5, it starts out a little bit like chapter 6 and chapter 7, warning us about the evil woman, warning us about the adulteress. And in Proverbs chapter 5, verse 6, it says, concerning the evil woman, she does not ponder the path of life. Her ways are unstable. She does not know it. Keep your way far from her, verse 8. Or you'll give your vigor to others, verse 9, your years to the cruel one. Strangers will be filled with your strength. Your hard-earned goods will go to the house of an alien. You will groan at your final end when your flesh and your body are consumed. And 12 and 13 indicate this is talking about someone who grew up in Israel and was part of God's people. I was almost in utter ruin, and it happened there in the midst of the congregation. That is like someone saying and I was a member of the church, or I was brought up in the church. I was raised in the church. And this and I was almost in utter ruin, so it can happen to anyone. But verse 15 says, drink water from your own cistern, fresh water from your own well. Should your springs be dispersed abroad, streams of water in the streets? Let them be yours alone, and not for strangers with you. Let your fountain be blessed. Rejoice in the wife of your youth. As a loving hind and a graceful doe, let her breast satisfy you at all times. Be exhilarated always with her love. For why should you, my son, be exhilarated with an adulteress and embrace the bosom of a foreigner? And I don't think that means like just someone from another race or nation. I think foreigner means they're like unbeliever or like pagan or someone who does not. What are you doing falling in love with someone and being with someone who doesn't even have the same value system you do, who's not serving the same God? Not only that, but what are you doing with someone in verse 6 that doesn't even know who they are? They're unstable and they don't know it. What are you doing in that sort of relationship? And so as we look at this section, well, why is she called a fountain? Any thoughts on that? Drink water from your own cistern, fresh water from your own well. She's likened to this everlasting spring. Any thoughts on that? And any thoughts on that connected to, does marriage have to get to a point like, well, I guess it's okay, it's not great, but here we are, and well, we'll just kind of make the best of it, and this is the way it's going to be? Or is God saying, no, it actually needs to be more than that, or it can be more than that? You got any thoughts on this? How do you keep it from becoming boring? Well, we've talked everything out. We've hashed everything out. There's nothing left to talk about. Is that true? Your thoughts on that? What do you think about that? Because a lot of young people are going like, well, what's going to happen in that? I mean, you have 40, 50, 60, 70 years together, if you're lucky. How do you keep that ever refreshing and always new? Yes, right over here. And we got 2 mics tonight, and let's run them. Let's just run them tonight. Yes.
I got to be honest, I'm not really sure about the fountain, but from this passage, to me, the biggest thing that jumps out is that this love or this attraction is a choice. And I think that, a lot of people nowadays, they think, oh, well, attraction just happens, or, you just fall in love with certain people. But I was told, a few years ago that, when you choose who you're attracted to, and when you're 80 and your wife is 80, your choice should be you're attracted to 80-year-olds. Like you're attracted to your wife always, no matter what. It's a choice.
I love that. You do see the choice here. Let. You see the same choice in Ecclesiastes 9:9. Enjoy life with the woman whom you love all the days of your fleeting life. For this is your reward in life, in your toil, your labor under the sun. That is a choice. You choose. It's not something that just chemicals happen to you. And that's why our culture about love is so wrong. Like, what's happening to me? As if it's something that seizes. And a lot of people like the idea that love just seizes you. But you got to watch. You don't want that, because if it can seize you, it can leave you just as quick. If it's nothing but infatuation or an emotion. Steve Wolfgang, during the lectures this year, had a great observation, and it goes along with the comment. That is, your wife is your standard of beauty now. If she's short, you're in the short. If she's thin, you're in the thin. If she's formally thin, you're in the formally thin, okay? But she is your standard of beauty. Right over here, yes.
Well, a fountain is refreshing.
Yeah.
And it's life-giving. And so that's the analogy that I see there. And if where you live in your home is that way, and your husband wants to be there because it's refreshing and it's a source of peace for him, then that's a really good way to not let Satan get a foothold in your marriage.
I love that. I believe that. I believe that marriage, and I think Ecclesiastes 9 compares the marriage relationship to toil. That is, the marriage relationship is supposed to be somewhat of a Garden of Eden, a refuge, a sanctuary. There was another word I had, a retreat, an oasis. It's supposed to be an oasis in a world that can be very oppressive, okay, and hard and difficult at times. That marriage is supposed to be this place that you can come for refreshment, and it's perpetual. And to me, the thought is that if you're growing as a Christian and they're growing as a Christian, you should never run out of things to talk about. In fact, you should view them as an endless discovery. And even if you're married 50, 60 years, it's like, and I still didn't find everything out about them. I still could never get down to the true depth. There was always more to explore. There was always more to talk about. And we were just growing together. And it's interesting contrast here between that and the hedonistic pleasure of the moment with the woman who doesn't even know who she is. And I love what someone said. Why would you ever opt for short-term pleasure when you could be walking in the eternal garden? And I love that the way that the people out there that are interested into the one-off and stuff without commitment, and you've got a perpetual spring. And the word let it be blessed, and maximize that and make the most of it, because you are not the same person 20 years into your marriage. And she shouldn't be the same person either. I know Cindy, sometimes we'll be at a restaurant and there's a bunch of guys. The guys are out and the guys are laughing and et cetera and hitting each other, whatever. And Cindy says, I wonder what they're talking about. I said, I know what they're talking about. They've been talking about the same stupid story they've been telling for the last 20 years of their bromance or whatever. They're not talking about anything new. But with the wife of your youth, there's always new things to explore and talk about. And you know what? Study after study only confirms that the people that are getting the most out of marriage, in fact, here's one of the things that non-Christians have a hard time putting their mind around this, how is it study after study after study say that religious couples in monogamous long-term committed marriages are actually having the best sexual relationship of anybody out there? Because to many people in the world, that just seems counterintuitive of, wait a minute, that's not the way it's advertised. Well, there's a lot of things that are not the way that it's advertised. I love when someone said, if you play the game by the rules, that makes a better game. It's frustrating to play a game when there are no rules. Well, we're going to play this game. What are the rules? Well, there are no rules. And it's like, well, that's going to be a very difficult sort of game to play. But it's always better if you play by the rules. That's more enjoyable for everyone involved. I love the thought there of being intoxicated, like carried away. Let's get a comment here. Oh, Peter, yes.
Oh, I had two, but you kind of made one of them, but maybe I'll just add to a small bit. So the idea of the cistern, too, it seems very deep, right? It's not a cup of water. It's like this really deep source of water. And so Lauren and I were just married 22 years, and so that doesn't feel like a long time once you've been married that long, but there was a time where that felt like forever when you're like 1 year married and you think 22 years, what will that be like? And won't you know everything there is to know about that person? And you just don't, right? Because they're always changing and you're always changing, and so you have an infinite permutative personality set that you're getting to know deeper and deeper. And so that's why it's a cistern, because it's so deep you can't even reach the bottom of it. And then it's also like, it's absolutely necessary for life. It's not only restorative, it's just rejuvenative at the very deepest of levels. And so, it becomes necessary, but not like in this perfunctory necessary level. It's that it is the essence. It's something that you need so deeply you can't live without it. And so that closeness becomes just a vital part of your survival. And so that and we're only 22 years into it. So I'm guessing that by the time we're 40 years into it, like some of you guys are, that it's just going to feel even deeper.
Yeah, I'm a big believer, and maybe that's, I don't know, maybe it's become I'm a romantic. I believe that your relationship can get better every year, that you don't have to go in this in life, that as a believer, as a Christian, you can keep the trajectory going all the way until you pass from this life. I had in Oregon, I served with an elder there, Kurt Davison. Kurt just died last week. Kurt is my age. And about 2 months before Kurt died, he had cancer, and he says, Mark, send me everything you got on heaven. And I said, okay. I had done a series on it, number of sermons on it, read them through Grammarly, proofread them, etc. Looked like, is this what I want to say? He said, before I go, me and Carolyn are going to study heaven together so that she's prepared when I leave. And I thought, man, is that thinking ahead. And that's that. And it does, when you're younger, 50 years together seems like a long time, but it's nothing. And I think, I'm always heartened by Christians that read the passage where Jesus talks about in the resurrection, they neither marry nor are given in marriage like the angels. And I always heartened when some Christians say, I don't know if I'm completely happy about that. I know that will be good, but there's a little bit of when one of us exits, that relationship ends. And I mean, my hope is that when you see each other on the other side, that it's like, I know you. Thank you for helping. I don't think I could have made it without you. And to me, if someone said, why is there no marriage there? And I would say, the only thing that makes sense to me is because there's only one relationship that can surpass the marriage relationship. And that's the relationship of you face to face with your Creator. That's the only relationship that can surpass it. And I know in my mind, marriage is the most elegant human relationship that ever has existed. And I think we need to talk it up more. I'm not sure if we do the best job of praising the relationship, because sometimes we fall into the trap of the world. Oh, men, or oh, women, or people start complaining instead of well, I tell people, because I was just a train wreck before Cindy met me and involved in all sorts of stuff. And I said, I encountered someone that was more intoxicating than what I was drinking. And that's why it was very easy to give it up. That this was the real thing. This was the real thing. Let's walk a little bit further here in this section of Proverbs chapter 5. It's in verse 17, let them be yours alone and not for strangers with you. I don't know if I'm right on this, but a thought came to my mind on that passage is, if you stray on your wife or you stray on your husband, you leave them in a very vulnerable situation. And often the psychopaths come in and try to take advantage of them. And I've seen that happen among Christians of a man strays and the woman is lonely and a guy shows up and he's a chameleon. He is a fake and a flake, but she's lonely. And you leave the door open for the predators that come in when that happens. And that's the thought I had there. Okay. I wanted to look at a couple other things there. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. 1 Peter 3, 7. A familiar passage to many of us. A good passage for men to remember that treat your wife right or the prayers are disconnected. You husbands in the same way live with your wives in an understanding way, as with someone weaker, since she is a woman, and show her honor or respect as a fellow heir of the grace of life. You're both children of God, so that your prayers will not be hindered. So how do you avoid letting resentments build up? All of us are burdens. Now, you might be a cute burden and a lovable burden, But all of us are burdens in the sense of there are sometimes I don't even like being with me, okay? That there are things that I know that can be annoying. And in the relationship, you got the rocks in your shoe. I think if you marry a Christian, you already got 80 to 90% of the things in common. You might have 10, 15% of the things you disagree about. They kind of irritate you a little bit, but you're vastly compatible. But you got this section. How do you deal with that section in your marriage that it's the rock in your shoe? What do you do about that? Because you can let it build resentment. You can let it start thinking that maybe somebody else, maybe somebody else would be more compatible. Like, too many people have this idea like, well, just the ideal person showed up, the perfect person. Well, there is no person, but if the perfect person did show up, that perfect person, and we need to be humble, would take one look at us, scream, turn around, and run in the opposite direction if we actually met the perfect person. But what do you do with the rock in your shoes? Your thoughts on that? Right over here, Heather.
Ephesians says that we wrestle with things that we don't understand,
right,
in the spiritual realm. And that gap that we can allow to simmer is this open invitation. We serve a God of oneness. He wants his people to be one. He wants the church to be one. He wants husbands and wives to be one. And so when that gap is allowed, we are allowing the tempter to come between our oneness. And so we have to really pray that God will open our eyes to those gaps and that we will fall down in humility to beg him that we will be humble workers to seal that over and not allow the tempter to come in between us. Good.
He's going to try to get in there. I think there's some things that you can do to take the lid off that pot so it doesn't boil. And one of them is that you have to pull things out of the fog. As a couple, sometimes you're going like, well, that kind of irritates me and bothers me, but I won't say anything about it. And the danger is that can build resentment. And I think the need for honest communication of, here's something to do, not my favorite thing, Is there a way that we can work on that? Is there a way that we could? And he's going to probably say, or she's going to probably say, she has her issues too. And it does take a lot of openness, and I'm not the best person in dealing with that, to pull stuff out of the fog and say, in our marriage, here are our areas of incompatibility. It's not big, it's not a huge area, but it's a small area. But we want to make sure that that doesn't fester there and, contaminate other areas. And is there any movement on those areas? And that brings up the topic of negotiation. And now sometimes we don't like negotiation because it sounds like we've been in negotiations for a car and we don't like those negotiations. But what I'm talking about is two Christians in good faith. Here's some things I think I need. Here's some things I think I need. And we both trust that the other person is being honest with us. And what might be the way that we could both get a good deal? And I think if anyone should be able to work that out, two Christians should be able to work it out. And of course also the honesty and humility of sometimes I don't even know what I want. Sometimes be very careful about thinking, well, that's what I want. Well, how do you know that's what you want? You really need to look at that. And so that's where I think honest conversations, I know we had a hand go up right down here. So we need a mic down front. But the thought is, don't assume that they know what you need. You need to talk to them about that. Yes, buddy.
Well, first of all, you've been saying some powerful things, dear brother. And we're looking at it from the perspective of almost 60 years together. And this lady is more beautiful to me than she's ever been, although she was absolutely gorgeous.
Which I laugh at.
But we've had some experiences where there were the rocks in the stone.
Yes.
It took me 20 years to figure part of it out because she finally explained it to me better.
Yeah, I didn't want. He was always been a very powerful kind of man,
Yeah.
and I was very submissive, and didn't think about articulating some things that I thought needed to be said.
Yes.
And he was responsive and listened, and that was very powerful. But one thing that we do regularly, if there's something that irritates either one of us, we'll go ahead and let the other one know respectfully so that
Yeah.
we can talk that out. And, but I've always believed that we need to lay cards on the table and don't leave things swept under rugs and unsolved and unresolved. That just destroys a marriage.
Good point. Yes,
I want to give
buddy.
you a specific, if I may.
Yes.
My problem was I was working 3 jobs and then had to get exercise, of course. A man has to get exercise.
Yes.
And that was tennis on Saturday mornings with Harry pickup, of
Right.
course. And that was standard procedure.
Right.
The only problem was that was probably the only time in the week she and I could be absolutely alone because the kids sleep in on Saturdays or watch cartoons or stay out of our hair.
Right.
And so Marilyn was able to calmly help me see, but where do I fit in?
Yeah, that was after 20 years. And it just dawned on me. I'm like, well, you're gone most evenings. You're preaching twice on Sundays and teaching class, teaching on Wednesdays, and all these jobs. And I'm like, where do I fit in with all of this?
Yes. We need to do a podcast with Buddy and Marilyn. We do. We do need
So
to do it.
anyway,
Yes.
the tennis on Saturday morning went away.
That's right. But he found another time to play tennis,
Yeah.
and then it was great.
It's interesting. Cindy's aunt and uncle, he was a very strong, high-profile man, and sleeping 5 hours a night, gone 16 hours a day or whatever. He gets up one morning, he's taking a shower, it's early in the morning. He says, Dorothy, I need my underwear out of the drawer. I need my underwear out of the... Nothing. Dorothy, I need my underwear. Nothing. He goes out there in a towel. First of all, the drawer in the dresser is completely gone where his underwear is. And there's no one in the house. He's walking through the house and the front door is open. And he walks out and the drawer and his underwear is scattered all over the front yard, and she's standing here like this. And she says, when you're ready to be a husband to me and a father to your daughter, you and your underwear are welcome back in the house. And he kind of goes, well, okay, well then I guess I needed to get together. But he had a very fond memory of that interaction, that really, in a sense, I guess saved him from going down the wrong path and missing out on marriage and family. I know we had a hand up right here.
We had some friends a while ago, and Peter and I have since kind of taken on this practice periodically, but they would call it their State of the Union.
Okay.
And every little while, and when they had time themselves, they would say, okay, what is the state of our union? And it wasn't to pick it apart, that wasn't the purpose, but you knew that you had an audience for whatever the little stone in your shoe is, or whatever we needed to fine tune. But it was kind of cute and kind of an intentional way of saying, or one of them would say, we need a State of the Union discussion. And that's how they address those things.
Yeah. Our friend Mike and Debbie do that, right? Once a year, they go through their entire marriage, and on 1 to 10, where is it? It's almost like a company meeting on the marriage. Communication, time together, whatever, 1 to 10. Cindy and I ran into something that I thought was very helpful. It was like every day you sit down, okay, what were 3 things that went right today? What do you need? 3 things that you need. Last one, what are 3 things that you appreciate about the other person? And I thought that was at least a good thing where you would meet at some point during the day and talk about that. Cindy?
Yes, it was one thing that went right, one thing that
One thing,
you,
yeah.
one thing that you want
Yeah.
was the last one. What do you want? And that's the scary one.
Yeah.
So every day you can clear that. The other thing we have that we could make available to everyone is that we have a list of 450 conversation questions.
Yes.
And this is what we do for fun on date night and whenever we're just sitting around. And so it helps and they're just like, some of them are really wacky, some of them are really deep, some of them, they're every kind of question. It's in one document we could send to folks, but it helps there not to be like 20 years that pass before something. It helps things come up that it wouldn't have otherwise come up.
Yeah.
And it's not couples conversations. It's all kinds of questions. So it really does help you realize what a deep cistern, that your mate is.
So on a date night, you're just not sitting there like all the other couples. You're both on your phone, not talking. And not only that, but you're not having to listen to the really annoying conversation that's going on. Or they got the big screens going everywhere, but you've got like, okay, we've got our topics. We got our topics, and let's go through. And these are some topics that we can really delve in and talk about some things. One thing, and many of you probably had run across this of your love languages, and it was like physical touch, words of affirmation, meaningful time, acts of service, gift giving, and I believe that's it. And the idea is that all of those make us feel good, but typically one of those is far more important than the others. And even if we have a mate that's nailing 4 of them, but the one that's most important to us, if they're not really hitting that one dead center, you can feel like you're not loved. And a lot of marriages get in that trouble where men like, well, you got everything you need. I got you a new car or whatever. And she's saying, okay, but that's not my primary love language. And when you understand what really makes the other person feel loved, at least you can. And you might say, but that's not my strongest suit. And you might say, but I'm not a 10 at that. And my response to that lately has been, okay, maybe so. Maybe you're going to never be a 10 at communication. But at least you can probably go from a 2 to like maybe a 6 or a 7. I think in all those areas we do have capability to move the bar. At least move the bar forward somewhat. And not only that, but you really don't know what you're capable of doing. Just be very, very careful about thinking like, well, I'm no good at that. That's not really part of my personality. And I think in times I've been wrong about that. You know, you get a C in chemistry in high school and, well, I guess I'm never going to be a chemist. And that doesn't mean that at all. A lot of people get C's in chemistry. That doesn't mean that you're not good at that. Put some effort into it and you might just surprise yourself on how good you could become at that. The other one I wanted to mention is, and I think Gary Smalley talked about this one, the love bank. Every marriage has like an account that you're either making deposits or withdrawals from. And well, what would be things that would make a deposit in your relationship? What would you consider a deposit in your marriage? I know we got a hand in the back here.
So Megan and I did premarital counseling with Andrew Roberts.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
The great theologian, and this is one thing we went over. And I was in banking at the time, and I particularly loved this concept. But to me, you talked about love languages, so making time for quality time would be a deposit. It just kind of depends. Some deposits would be bigger than others, depending on the preferred love language or whatnot. Gifts and acts of service. I guess I'm just kind of running through the love languages, but I mean, they're pretty broad categories, and I think they cover all that. And then the concept that I love is you don't want to be overdrawn, because if you make too many withdrawals on your love account, you run into issues. If you're always withdrawing and you always need something, but you're not making deposits, you'll be overdrawn. Helpful concept.
Yeah, I think also be very, very careful about how big you think the withdrawal is or how big you think the deposit is. And I think in that series as well, there was a conversation about, like, you say something to your wife, you say something to your husband, and the thought was, by the look on your face, I can tell that was hurtful. Did I just drop a pebble on your head or a watermelon? Because sometimes you don't know. You don't know how big a withdrawal you just took by what you said. And that's the other thing, particularly I think for Christians, because Christians understand we get married and we stay married and what the Bible teaches about marriage. But sometimes the danger that we can fall into is thinking, well, I've got them and they're stuck with me, and so they're going to have to take it. And that's a horrible attitude. But I think people can fall into that trap of thinking that and take each other for granted. And so the importance of, 1 Peter says, honor. Treat her with honor, respect, and that has to include the words that we choose. And that we have time for them. And as you noted, regular date nights. And some of you maybe have read Lynn Wade's book on critical connections, and it's about spirals. And he said a lot of people, one of the common denominators of when people spiral down is what it starts with is they feel that they were not appreciated. And just the importance of does your mate feel appreciated? I mean, do you say thank you or I appreciate that? Do you have words of praise for them? Yes, Arlene.
One of the things that I always think about is, and you touched on it, about the respectful honoring of each other. We're in a covenant relationship, and this is a gift.
Yeah.
And so we need to continue to nurture it. And so one of the things I think we fight in society is the disrespect, especially of our men. And every movie, every successful TV show shows the fathers are a bunch of idiots. And so that constant reinforcement of this disrespectful attitude, there's no place for that in a marriage. And I remember when I was in an office, how I hear my staff complaining about their husbands. They were just a bunch of idiots and all that constant. And my comment would always be, well, this is not exactly uplifting. This can't be helping your marriage. You don't have respect. And that's not the way to nurture a relationship. And so there's a lot of that we need to be very careful about criticism, especially bad-mouthing in front of others. Because then you're also eroding respect of your husband or your wife. And those are the kinds of bad habits and the disrespectful talk and the name-calling. That kind of stuff is really a deep wound. And I saw that in my family.
Right.
And I vowed that I would never marry or I would never replicate that behavior. Yeah. And so we worked really hard on that. So it's always that, even when you're angry, it's kind of hard to get too far off if you're, but honey, kind of thing. So keeping that tender tone is, I think, really important.
Good observation. This is the fellow heir of the grace of life. I mean, this person has a soul. And at the end of time, you want them to be able to say, you really helped me make it. I don't know if I could have done it without you. You really helped me to become the Christian that I became. You were a great asset in my life. In Ephesians chapter 5, I think you see that spiral. That spiral starts with wives, submit to your husbands, like back him up, be the helpmeet, do him good all the days of his life, respect him, and then the husband, love her as Christ loved the church, sacrifice yourself. Save your wife, save your kids, nourish her, cherish her, protect her, sanctify her, be like a savior in her life. Lead her in the right way. Be a trustworthy spiritual leader and provide a loving atmosphere in the home and set the tone for the family. And you just kind of see that should play off of each other. Yes.
I recently read an article that was called Choosing to Have a Good Marriage Relationship.
Yeah.
I don't have the article with me, but the 5 points that the author made, I was so in agreement with that I think I've written down pretty well what they wrote. Would you like me to?
Sure would, yes.
Okay. Choose one another every time over other people or other activities.
Okay.
Number 2, choose to commit 100%. 50-50 is not fully committed. And that means to be 100%, you'll probably face occasional forgiveness. Number 3, choose to be your spouse's biggest cheerleader. Praise, compliments, and promote them to other people. Number 4, choose to help, to hug, to touch, to kiss, to cuddle, to hold hands. In other words, to be very warm with one another. And number 5, choose to laugh and smile and giggle together. It makes your life positive and happy.
Good thoughts. I really like, those are all great. The one that I really like was the idea, at least for right now, that just jumped up in my head was marriage is an all or nothing thing. Unless you're willing to go in with both feet and you're all in, don't do it. And I think children, and becoming a Christian is the same way, and having children, those 3 things are, you don't do them 75%. Those are just, are you all in or not? And it's like I'm all in, and I'm all in this, and I'm all into to see this to the end. And not only that, but, well, what could it be? I mean, what if I gave my all? What if both of us said, let's just try to have the best possible marriage we could have and really focus on that? What might that look like? And I think it would be worth finding out what that does look like. Because I think the danger is, I think a lot of times people reach the point like, well, I think this is good enough. And they quit really working on it. And I don't believe in that. I think that's a big mistake. Seek to make it the best thing that you can make it, because this is the only time in your entire existence that you're going to be able to enjoy it. And I don't know if that sinks in. You're going to exist somewhere else for 99.9% of your existence. You're going to be somewhere else, and marriage isn't part of it. And to me, it's just like, well, if this is my one precious life, and if this is my one precious marriage, what am I doing not giving it my all? Thank you for being here tonight.
Greetings and welcome to the services tonight. We will start with number 50 in the songbook, All Things Praise Thee. Do, all things praise Thee, Lord Most High, heaven and earth and sea and sky, all earth for Thy glory made, and Thy greatness thus displayed. Should all worship praise to Thee, all things praise Thee, Lord, may we. All things praise Thee, night to night, sings in silent hymns of light. All things praise Thee, day to day, chants Thy power in burning ray. Time and space are praising Thee. All things praise Thee, Lord, may we. All things praise Thee as Thy shrine rings with melody divine. Lowly bending at Thy feet, seraph and archangel meet. This their highest bliss to be, ever praising, Lord, may we. All things praise Thee, gracious Lord, great Creator, powerful Word, omnipresent Spirit now, at Thy feet we humbly bow. Lift our hearts in praise to Thee. All things praise Thee, Lord, may we. The second song we'll be singing is Only a Holy God. Do, do, do. Who else